Well, Finland's president and prime minister announced that they support a NATO membership, moving the Nordic nation, which shares an 800-mile border with Russia, one step closer to membership of the US-led military alliance. Well, Nick Robinson reports from Helsinki.
In Helsinki, calm as leaders move the nation ever closer to NATO membership. A momentous announcement delivered without fanfare by Prime Minister and President. A two-paragraph joint statement. NATO membership will strengthen Finland. Finland would strengthen NATO. Finland must apply without delay. On the eve of the historic announcement, Finland's president explaining why it's not a threat to Russia, but Russia is to blame.
We increase our security and we do not take it away from anybody.
The Kremlin's response: this doesn't make the world any safer. Russia's foreign ministry doubling down, saying they'll take military action if their national security is under threat. In Parliament, where the historic vote will happen, routine business continues. But lest Russia escalate tensions, calls for speed.
Joining to NATO should be as short as possible.
When the moment comes, likely early next week, Koskinen, a member of the PM's party, is sure the vote to join will carry easily.
The result may be around 180 out of 200 in favor of membership.
Politicians and public now, for the most part, in lockstep, wanting to join NATO.
People, of course, support, especially when Russia have attacked Ukraine.
Not just the invasion of Ukraine, but a history of rocky relations with Russia, spurring many here to reassess decades of neutrality.
I have a very old father. He's 96, so he was here when we had our wars in Finland with Russia. And he's been talking about, the Russians can come anytime. And I said, oh, my father, you're back in the 40s and take it easy. And they're not, yeah, you never know what the Russians, they can always come. I said, take it easy. And now I just had to say to him, well, you were right.
In a way, Finland has been preparing for this moment for more than a generation. They've been involved in plenty of NATO and other international military operations, from Iraq to Afghanistan to Kosovo, Bosnia, Lebanon.
Well, let's talk about this a little more now. My guest, retired captain from the US Navy, Gary Tabach, who was the former chief of staff of NATO's mission in Moscow, is joining me now from Miami in Florida. Well, Gary, thank you so much, firstly, for coming onto the show. Obviously, this is a historic move. Do you think Finland's accession to NATO will cause some serious damage to bilateral Russian-Finnish relations?
Shalom, Sarah. Shalom, Israel. Thank you for inviting me. I don't think at this point anybody really should care what kind of relationship they have with Russia. Having a relationship with Russia is being Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, Taliban, and Syria, and the rest of the terrorists of this world are the partners of Russia. So we shouldn't care what kind of relationship you have with Russia. Finland has always been preparing for this moment. And the sad part that Russia could have been Finland many times, but chose not to be, chose to be in the serfdom and in the situation they're now, threatening everybody all around them that if they join the EU or if they join NATO, or if they join Israel, or if they join anything else, they're trying to control all the sovereign states to whatever they think is right at that particular moment. And just not so long ago, Israel was enemy number one, and you couldn't speak Yiddish, you couldn't speak Hebrew anywhere on the streets of Russia. Well, they can't dictate to the rest of the world how they want all of us to live and threaten us with a nuclear weapon or a nuclear, or a war constantly.
So Russia's threatening military technical retaliation over Finland's NATO bid. What more can we expect, do you think, going forward?
I think we should expect a victory in Ukraine, and Russia should fall apart, and we should demilitarize it take away nuclear weapons from them so they cannot threaten the rest of the world, and deal with them the way we dealt with Germany and Japan at the end of World War II. We can't continue and live like that when they're constantly saying, all right, well, prices of oil are dropping and we need to feed ourselves and to build our war machine. Let's start a war in the Middle East. Let's attack Israel. Let's attack Finland. Let's attack anybody who's around us or who's they think is smaller or weaker than they are. So we can't let them blackmail us into submission and do whatever Russians want. I think it's time that the world takes a stand, like in World War II, the world took a stand against Hitler and his axis. The same thing, we should stand with Russia and just finish this once and for all. We shouldn't back out of it at this point. We should support Ukraine, everybody, and I know Israel now is supporting Ukraine. So we know. And look, Sarah, we can tell from the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, and it's not him speaking, Mr. Lavrov, the way he's backing up to the anti-Semitism, to the old Soviet trick or any dictator's trick. When they're starting to lose, who's at fault? It's the Jews. So this anti-Semitism that's on the rise in Russia is a primary example of what is going on or where they're referring to. So this is not, they're not going to stay quiet. No matter how hard we're going to try to please them and pacify them. You can't pacify a crocodile. You can't pacify a dictator. We should finish them off. So in Finland, NATO wouldn't exist. When I was the chief of staff in Moscow, NATO practically stopped its existence in a sense. But then there was an attack on Georgia, and we kind of held our breath. And then there was an attack on Ukraine and annexation of Crimea.
Right,
so
right.
This is when NATO was revived. If Putin and Russia would behave civilized, there would be no need for NATO. And NATO is a defensive mechanism. It's a club to defend everybody.
Sincerest apologies there, Gary. We do really have to stop you there. We're running out of time, but we do appreciate all that insight. Retired Captain from the US Navy, Gary Tabach, and the former Chief of Staff of NATO in Moscow. Thank you very much.
Peace.
Well, that's it for now from the news desk. We are bringing you more of the latest news from this region and around the globe. I'm Sarah Shalalaran. Thank you for joining us.